Hey guys, just want to continue our series on the Sermon on the Mount. As we're moving from legalism into freedom, we're continuing to take a look at Jesus' articulation of what that looks like practically. He moves from the law into our hearts throughout. Last week we talked about blessed are those who, and we talked about how folks that are experiencing a less than ideal situation have reason to hope because someday it will be perfect. So someday we will experience peace. Someday we will experience humility. Someday we will experience the fullness of what He has for us, and we are blessed. But for now, we take a look at the situation that we're in. The situation that we're in is less than perfect, and so God calls us to live a life in conjunction with Him and with others. So we move into Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16, which says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Now in this passage, there's a lot of debate about salt and saltiness, and salt has many different properties. So it can add flavor to food. A lot of people think that it's talking about Christians being the flavor of the earth. Salt can also preserve meat. And so a lot of people talk about Christians preserving the earth. And I don't think it's talking about either one here. I believe what it's talking about is salt's purpose. So when salt loses its very essence, its purpose, it's no longer good for anything except for to be thrown out and trampled on. And so he's equating Christians to salt here. When we're disconnected from the purpose for which He made us, we no longer have the value that He intended for us to have. The primary purpose for us is to be in relationship with Him. He created us for that purpose. He created Adam with the intent of spending all of his days in the garden with God. That was the purpose of creating him. And so if we lose our purpose, if we lose our relationship, we no longer have the same value. It's not talking about our properties, our mental condition, our physical ability, and that's encouraging because over time we lose some of our mental condition and we lose our physical ability. And so it's encouraging to me to realize that because he's not talking about our properties, our characteristics. He's talking about the foundation for our life, which is relationship with Him. I want to take a hard right turn here, so stick with me here. There's no real good way to go between relationship with God and then start talking about toilets. But that's where I want to go for now. So toilets have a very distinct purpose. The distinct purpose is to keep us healthy. Back in the 1800s, there was this plague called the bubonic plague. It's a disease that was responsible for estimated 50 million deaths throughout Europe. And the reason that this spread so quickly is because they didn't have indoor plumbing. And so they would dump their waste out in the streets in the cities, and then rodents or insects would land on the waste and then track germs all over the place and spread the virus like crazy. Toilets gave us a very unique way to separate cleanliness from filth. And so it seals off sewage from the area that we live in, giving us more health. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but I can tell you one thing that toilets are not good for: landscaping. Have you ever seen toilets as a decorative lawn ornament before? I'm from Virginia, so maybe that's what it is, but I have seen this, and it looks hideous. If toilets lost their purpose and lost their ability to separate waste from cleanliness, then they would be good for nothing. In fact, they'd be more of an eyesore than anything. You'd probably hear about articles written about landfills filling up with all these useless toilets that we have. And so they wouldn't fulfill their purpose any longer. And they certainly don't make good lawn ornaments. So you can see how when a being loses its purpose, it's no longer good for anything. And so outside of a relationship with God, we as Christians no longer have that same value to the world. Here in this passage, he's talking about how relationship with God is primary importance. And then he moves into how it relates to others around us. He wants us first to focus on our relationship with God and stay in communion with Him, stay in relationship with Him in everything that we do. And then do the good deeds that He has called us to in sight of everyone else, so that they can see our good deeds that He has called us to and glorify our Father in heaven. This sounds a lot like the greatest commandment. When the Pharisees came to Jesus and they asked Him, which is the greatest commandment? Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. First, He's pointing to the relationship between God and you, primary importance. And then secondarily is the relationship with others. And it's through maintaining our original purpose, relationship with God, spending time with God, digging into His Word, listening to Him, spending time in prayer, hearing what He is calling us to, hearing the direction He is calling our lives in, hearing the people that He is calling us toward, that we maintain our original and necessary purpose. It's through doing that we add flavor, we preserve the earth, however you want to say it, we do all kinds of things, but it's through that relationship that we maintain our value. So first and foremost, God wants us to be in relationship with Him. He longs for a relationship with you. And second, He wants others to see Him through you and to know Him through you. And so I want to take some time to just think on that truth and let that marinate and let that set in. We want to spend some time thinking about how we maintain that relationship with God, and we also want to think of examples where others have seen Christ through us, we have seen Christ through others, and we also want to take a look at examples where we've seen the opposite, where people who are supposed to be light have not been that. And I believe it's through the heart relationship that Jesus is pointing us toward. He's pointing us inward in our heart, in relationship with God, that is the source of all life.